Hi, I'm Maria Elser, manager of Mowat's Home Hardware. We've been growing and adapting with the Salt Spring Island community since 1907. Our employees are your friends and neighbors. We care about our community and we care about where we live and work. As we all try to find ways to lighten our footprint on the environment, we're searching for more eco-friendly product choices to help you in that effort. Here are just a few examples. Adirondack chairs from Ontario, each made from over 27,000 plastic bottle caps. They never rot, and you can leave them outside all year round. Natura paint is an environmentally friendly, non-toxic paint that's easy on those with allergies and asthma. It comes in 4 different finishes. We source a variety of wooden toys for children which are durable and last through generations. Beeswax sheets are a good choice in place of plastic wrap. Reusable bamboo plates are great for picnics and camping without waste, and they're an excellent choice over plastic dishes for young kids. Linen sheets are a sustainable natural product made from the flax plant. It is a very durable, lightweight fabric, and it is 3 times stronger than cotton. We're Mowat's Home Hardware, celebrating 115 years of serving our community. We're proud to work with and support local groups like Transition Salt Springs Climate Action Coach Program.
Hi, I'm Richard.
I'm Hannah.
We're with Whirlwind Heating and Refrigeration.
And we're proud to be sponsors of Transition Salt Springs Climate Action Coach Program.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Darlene Gage. I am the Executive Director of Transition Salt Spring, and we're here tonight to bring you a webinar all about wood stoves. I'd like to start tonight by expressing my gratitude for the real privilege of being able to live on the unceded and traditional territories of the Hul'qumi'num and Senchothan speaking Coast Salish peoples. If you happen to be joining us from a different territory, I would also invite you to put that territory into the chat and let us know where you're joining us from tonight. Sometimes we do have visitors from other places besides Salt Spring Island. Indigenous people in this region have lived here sustainably for thousands of years and continue to thrive here now. We have so much to learn from them, and their generosity is evident in the hundreds of ways that they show up in our community to share their culture and their knowledge with us. There are so many events, art shows, ceremonies, lectures, cultural performances, and other opportunities taking place all the time on Salt Spring Island and in the region as a whole. These offerings, in my mind, are one of the best ways for all of us to actively engage in reconciliation and to learn how we can better live here and take care of these lands and take care of each other. Coast Salish people know this place, and they know about right relationships and our interconnectedness in very deep ways. So I invite you to honor this wisdom and actively learn how we can all do better. So now I'm going to hand you over into the very capable hands of the Transition Salt Spring Climate Action Coach, Morgan Fraser. Over to you, Morgan.
Thank you for sharing that, Darlene. My name is Morgan, and I am the Climate Action Coach for Transition Salt Spring. I'm really grateful to have you here today, as well as to those who are watching the replay of this as well. We'd like to start by thanking our funders, who are Clean BC Better Homes, the CRD, the Victoria Foundation, the Salt Spring Island Foundation, as well as Van City. We'd also like to thank our 2022 sponsors for the Climate Action Coach Program, our tree-level sponsors, Whirlwind Heating and Refrigeration and Mowat's Home Hardware, as well as our branch-level sponsors, Fresco Refrigeration and Salt Spring Home Design Center. We'd also like to thank our guests, Mitchell Sherrin at Salt Spring Fire Rescue tonight. A special call out to Salt Spring Home Design Center, also servicing Salt Spring and the Southern Gulf Islands, where you can shop locally for a large selection of CSA selected and certified wood stoves. We are presenting on behalf of Transition Salt Spring, which, for those unfamiliar, is a community-led response to climate change and a registered BC nonprofit society. Our mission is to respond to climate change, restore ecosystems, and rebuild community together. Last year, Transition Salt Spring published our Climate Action Plan 2.0 for Salt Spring, available on our website. Everything that we do is derived from this plan. Our activities focus on climate action related public education and projects like the Climate Action Coach program, and our work with the North Salt Spring Water District in the Maxwell Creek watershed. We have multiple working groups doing incredible things like our local EV group and plant stewardship group. So there's really a lot going on within Transition Salt Spring. And the specific program within Transition Salt Spring that I'm representing tonight is the Climate Action Coach program. Climate Action Coach empowers you to keep doing your part about climate change in your own backyard. We act as a hub of advice and information, connecting residents and businesses to local suppliers to help fight climate change while saving your household energy, money, and supporting our local economies. We offer rebate programs for rainwater harvesting, heat pumps, and wood stoves, and can connect you with resources about the available provincial and federal rebate programs. If you need some help to achieve greater resilience against the changing climate, but don't know where to start or don't know what step to take to move forward, you can check out our website at transitionsaltspring.com/coach. And you can feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is climatecoach@transitionsaltspring.com. All right, so now we're going to move into our wood stove discussion. I'm going to start by discussing the environmental impacts of wood burning and then go into the wood stove and heat pump rebates that we have available. From there, we'll have our guest, Mitchell Sherrin from Salt Spring Fire Rescue, go into detail about how to burn wood in the safest way possible. So as a rundown on the environmental impacts of using a wood stove. Some think of wood burning as natural or even as carbon neutral. However, it is important to note that wood burning impacts our environment and our air quality. According to The Guardian, burning wood is not carbon dioxide free. It releases carbon stored over previous decades in one quick burst. For an equal amount of heat or electricity, it releases more CO2 than burning gas, oil, or even coal. When you burn wood, even in the most efficient of wood stoves, there is fine particulate matter, such as PM 2.5, released into the surrounding atmosphere that is quite noxious and harmful. Many other chemicals are produced when wood is burnt, including greenhouse gases like methane, carbon monoxide, and small amounts of nitrogen dioxide, which is 300 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than CO2 and lasts 120 years in the atmosphere. In addition to that, if you burn wood inefficiently, soot, also known as black carbon, is emitted. So these emissions contribute to greenhouse gas in our atmosphere and can have a significant health impact on both your household and your neighbors. Residential wood smoke can increase particle pollution to levels that can cause significant health concerns, such as with asthma, with heart attacks, and even premature death. Burning wet or green wood produces even more smoke, making it more dangerous for your health and the health of your community. Cold weather often coincides with an increase in wood burning and air inversions that can lead to unhealthy levels of air pollution. A PM 2.5 monitoring station, which is shown here, which is located in Ganges on Salt Spring Island, indicates that fine particulate matter levels in this region frequently exceed the BC air quality objectives, particularly during winter when many households primarily heat with wood stoves. So with that in mind, old uncertified wood stoves release between 15 and 30 grams of smoke per hour. Compare that to a new EPA 2020 certified stove that now limits smoke emissions to only 2 grams of smoke per hour. And according to the EPA, changing out one old, dirty, inefficient wood stove is the equivalent of reduction to taking 5 old diesel buses off the road. Having adequate heating and during power outages and storms is an important aspect for climate resiliency. Transition Salt Spring recommends upgrading your out-of-date wood stove to an EPA 2020 certified one. Better yet, consider installing a heat pump as a cleaner alternative as your primary heat source. We want to get these old stoves out of our communities to help protect and preserve our air quality. Through a combination of an upgraded wood stove and conducting cleaner burning practices, many of which you'll learn today, you can reduce your emissions of your wood stove significantly. Now, before we start discussing the rebates that we have to offer, we have a quick giveaway from Erin Ann. Erin Ann, I pass it on to you.
Okay, well, we have 5 moisture meters to help ensure low moisture content on the wood that you're burning. So everybody knows that burning wet or green wood produces even more smoke. So using a moisture meter can help you reduce the smoke and the pollution. So if you are able to pick up a moisture meter on Salt Spring, put your name in the chat, and our first 5 people will win a moisture meter.
We've got Patty Wardlaw, Vanessa, Eric Pollins, Elizabeth Preston. I think that's 4. We need 1 more. Julia Smith. Our 5 winners. You guys are quick on the draw. You got to be ready at any moment here at these TSS webinars. So congratulations, Julia, Elizabeth, Eric, Vanessa, and Dave.
Thanks, Darlene. So now we'll pass it on to Morgan, and I will get in touch with everybody to get your contact or find out a way that you can pick it up.
Thanks, Erin Ann, and thanks, Darlene. Okay, we are going to move on to our rebate that we have to offer. Moment, there we are. The Community Wood Smoke Reduction Program. 2023, next year will be our 2nd year running this program. This first year was our pilot of this and learned a lot. This program is brought to you by, made possible by the BC Lung Foundation, the BC Ministry of Education.
Looks like Morgan might be having an issue with her Wi-Fi. We're just going to hope that she comes back in a moment. The rebate that we're offering through BC Lung Foundation is what they call the Community Wood Smoke Reduction Program. And the goals of that program are to encourage the public to change out old smoky wood stoves for cleaner burning heating options like heat pumps or a cleaner burning wood stove. We're also here to try to raise awareness about good burning practices, which is one of the reasons that we're here this evening, and educate the public about wood smoke and its health effects. So you're going to be getting all of that in our webinar this evening. So in 2023, there are going to be new rebates being offered. This is a new level of rebate that was not available in 2022. So the new rebates are going to see up to $500 for you to be able to purchase a new higher efficiency CSA or EPA certified wood stove, $1,000 towards a heat pump, and a $300 bounty to decommission and recycle an uncertified wood stove. I'm seeing an asterisk here about the heat pump must have a CSA certified wood stove and sign pledge. To be able to go to the heat pump, I think you have to sign an agreement that says that you will only use your wood stove in the case of emergencies or for backup heating during cold snaps. So Morgan can tell you more about that when she gets here. So for the heat pump, specifically the heat pump rebates, it is the $1,000 that's available through this wood smoke reduction program is stackable with provincial and federal rebates, which means that you could get a few $1,000s back on a on putting heat pumps into your house. So this is something that, again, Morgan at climate coach at transitionsaltspring.com can be able to help step you through the various levels of rebates that are available for a heat pump. So this gets into some pretty significant savings if you stack them with other provincial and federal rebates that are available.
So the main things for eligibility for this rebate are that the old stove must be disabled and recycled. And it must be replaced for a home heating. This can't be for a shed, for a garage, or a barn. This is meant to be for your primary residence. And the big one is that the heating source must be the new 2020 EPA requirements. If it's for a new wood stove, that, as mentioned before, that would be for less than 2 grams of smoke per hour, as opposed to an uncertified one, which is upwards of 30 grams of smoke per hour. And it must be a new appliance for this rebate program. In terms of the actual process of doing this rebate, the main thing is to get your pre-screening approved from us to be confirmed that you're eligible. This will be available in early 2023. If you're getting a wood stove upgrade, you will have to complete a 1-hour online smoke reduction education course, as well as get a WETT inspection, W-E-T-T inspection, and a CRD building permit for a new stove. We will require proof of the decommission and recycling of the wood stove. So with that in mind, if you're interested in this rebate, we have an expression of interest list for 2023. What this will do is just notify you when the actual rebate is open and available to you. We expect this rebate funding to be quite popular, especially with the increased values of this rebate and the increased accessibility of getting the heat pump portion of this rebate. So we really think that the rebate will be distributed quickly. So join that interest list if you are interested. And with that, I hand it over to you, Darlene.
So Morgan, we've only had one question in the chat so far, and that is there's a specific stove that Patty has called a Pacific Energy Alderlia. She was wondering if how that rated on the clean scale. And I think that mostly has to do with whether it's what year it is and whether it's certified. Is that right, Morgan?
Yeah, so the main thing is to see if it's CSA or EPA certified. Usually there'll be some sort of labeling on the stove itself, and if not, find a user manual of that stove. If you can't find either of those, a WETT technician will be able to help you out as well. If it is CSA or EPA certified, it is likely 4.5 grams of smoke per hour. And then anything that is newer than 2020 is that 2 grams per hour. So there is benefit if it's older than 5 years old to getting a new wood stove. It is a reduction of over 50%, but it really is those old smoky uncertified stoves that is our primary focus with this rebate to get out of the commission and out of our community.
Right, right. I'm appreciating how people are asking those kinds of questions to be able to see how they can reduce both their climate impacts and also their impacts on the human health of their family and their neighbors. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. Folks, do feel free to ask questions in the chat and we'll be passing them along. I'm now going to actually introduce our guest of honor today, Mitchell Sherrin. He's the Assistant Chief at Salt Spring Fire Rescue. Mitch he's been the Assistant Fire Chief for almost 20 years at Salt Spring Island Fire Rescue. He lives on a hobby farm with his wife, Mylene, a flock of sheep, lots of chickens, 3 cats, and a border collie. And I'm sure that many of you know Mitchell. He's also previously worked on the island as a paramedic, a reporter, and a school teacher. So Mitchell certainly does get around. So again, please do ask questions in the chat and I'll be passing them on to Mitchell, but Mitchell, over to you.
So hello everyone, good evening. I hope we don't have any more power mishaps and that you're all cozy and warm. Behind me is a quilt made by one of our colleagues, and I thought that'd make a fun little backdrop. And as Darlene had mentioned, if you have any questions about wood heat safety, efficiency, please jump in the chat. And then I've told her to interrupt me because your questions are what I think are most important. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a PowerPoint just to get something to look at other than this lovely quilt. And we're going to use that to discuss things here. So this is our presentation. I just wanted to thank Darlene, Morgan, and Erin Ann for your work with transitions and your work this evening. And yeah, so I have a slightly different agenda, though I support the transitions agenda to preserve the environment. But my key focus comes to wood heat safety. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. But I've got a couple of key messages that I wanted to share with everyone here. And I'm going to say them now, just in case for whatever reason, people need to leave or they lose power or what have you. So here's my big takeaways. One is invest in clean technology, as Morgan and Erin Ann and Darlene had touched on. Not only will that help to be better for the environment, it'll be safer in your home as well. Also, go to the professionals. Get professionals to come and clean your chimney. Talk to some of the wonderful people we've got for information about the appliances and your chimney outdoors. Don't burn wet wood. Wet wood's a waste, so it's great that we've handed out those moisture meters. Those will be really useful. I think I might get one myself. Never burn garbage. And by never burning garbage, I want to extend that to beyond the obvious, burning garbage in your wood stove, but you don't want to burn anything substandard. It's going to make things less safe. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about some techniques that allow you to have more fire than smoke. If smoke is coming out of your chimney, it's a sign that you're doing things badly. A hot fire is much more efficient, and it is not really going to produce a lot of smoke. So the key agenda I'm going to touch on is going to touch a little bit on safety, a little bit about firewood, a little bit about an efficient burning technique, and then we'll talk some about appliances and chimneys. The advantages of wood heating, we've talked about the problems, but there's a lot of advantages as well. One is there's some self-sufficiency that comes along with that, and I think there's some satisfaction with being able to go heat yourself. It is a fairly renewable resource as opposed to fossil fuels. It's once upon a time it was inexpensive, and when I was younger I collected all my own firewood, so it was great in my household. It can be a source of fitness, and as you may be aware, it's a great power outage alternative. But along with these advantages do come the problems of safety, air pollution. It adds some additional maintenance concerns. There's some bulky storage issues, and then there's the potential of insects and fire risk. So here's my big hidden agenda on why I'm presenting tonight and why I've been doing talks like these for several years now. We see several chimney fires every year, and on average, we get about one significant house fire per year as a result of chimney fires. And this image, these are all chimney fires we've had on Salt Spring that have gone to become fairly significant. And when I went around and visited some other communities, I asked them about their chimney fire issues, and I was really shocked that other communities near us don't have as many chimney fires as we do. And I thought, wow, either we're burning a lot more wood or we've got an issue with people not burning correctly. So I thought, well, let's get out there and share some good information. So I'm hoping we'll have less fires related to wood stove use, which means I've got to touch on a couple more safety issues. One is I hope you all have working smoke detectors. Hardwired smoke detectors are required by building code since 1979, or everything constructed after 1979. If you don't have a smoke detector, pop by the fire hall. We have extras. I'm happy to hand them out. I want everybody to be safe. Money shouldn't be a barrier to whether or not you have safety. If you're not a homeowner, you're a tenant, you should know that the homeowners have a responsibility to provide working smoke alarms. And once again, if that's impossible, come see us. We'll give you a smoke alarm. Another thing that's handy if you have a wood stove is a carbon monoxide detector. And some people don't realize that wood stoves can also produce carbon monoxide. And I'm sad to say that it's fortunately several years ago, but we did have a fatality on Salt Spring due to carbon monoxide produced from wood heat. And so I just want people to realize, hey, if your wood stove isn't working properly, and it's one more reason to have it inspected by a wet certified technician, it can produce carbon monoxide, which could make you sick or lead to a fatality. Another thing that's really handy, especially if you've got a wood stove, is a fire extinguisher. And I recommend that it's a good investment for the family to get a fire extinguisher and learn how to use it. And once again, we provide those opportunities on the island. The next thing in my little safety chat is disposing of your ashes safely when you clean out your wood stove. We've had several fires related to that as well. I've got a little image of ashes in the cardboard box or ashes in the paper bag. They might seem quite cool, and maybe it's been a few days since you've used your wood stove, but ashes can actually retain quite a bit of warmth for a long time, and you might actually have some coals in amongst the ashes that you don't even realize are there, because the ashes are a good insulator, and those coals can ultimately start a fire. And we've actually had, I've even had a problem with somebody putting a bucket full of ashes down on a wood stove, and that, or on a wood floor, and that actually starting a smoldering fire. So be aware. Dispose of your ashes in a metal bucket. Take them far away from your home and dispose of them appropriately. They're great for your garden, by the way, as a little side. So next little topic, we moved away from safety, we're into firewood. Firewood is key. Wet wood is a waste. You don't want to be burning wet wood, and you're going to need to let it cure for a long time. It depends on the species of the wood. Arbutus takes much longer. Some hardwoods like alder, maple, oak, those are going to take a little bit longer. Same with fruit woods. Fir is what most people burn here, but that's going to still take you about 6 months. So if you haven't collected your wood in the spring, you know, you're going to probably want to be looking at alternative heating sources instead of using your wood now. And unfortunately, some wood sellers might tell you, oh, it's well seasoned, but you're going to want to actually have the wood yourself for a substantial amount of time. So as I said, 6 months is really a minimum. Arbutus, probably a year or longer. One thing I thought might be handy to share with people is what is a cord of firewood? A lot of times people buy wood and they're not even really sure what the measurement of a cord is. So I thought I'd just throw in a little note about that. A proper cord of firewood should be 4 feet wide by 4 feet high and about 8 feet long. So that's going to be more than a pickup truck load. If somebody's telling you that they get a cord of wood in a pickup truck, that's false. Also, this image shows a pretty good way to store firewood. Firewood needs to have sunlight and air in order to cure properly. And it's interesting. There's some discussion about whether or not you want to cover it. There's different schools of thought on that. If it's had sufficient time to cure, it actually doesn't even need to be covered. But a couple of days of rain, if you give it a few more days to dry off, it'll be good to go. So you want to collect your wood in the spring, cut it to a variety of sizes, store it up off the ground so it doesn't rot, and ventilate it in. And as I said, some people believe it should be covered. When I say a variety of sizes, you still want it to be 16 inches long so it fits in your firebox, and really no larger than 6 inches around or in diameter. Anything much bigger than that is going to be difficult to fit in your wood stove and won't burn that efficiently. And then there's how to tell if wood's dry. Well, ultimately, if you've got a moisture meter, you can use that. You want to have your wood with less than 20% moisture content. Now, if you're like me and you don't have a moisture meter, which I think would be a handy thing, I think I might go get one. They're relatively inexpensive. You could also look at wood and see these check marks in the wood or the cracks. Those are a sign of curing. Wood darkens with age, so you'll notice a change in color. And if you knock two pieces together, dry wood sounds kind of hollow compared to wet wood, which will kind of thunk instead of making like a musical note. Ultimately, if you're burning your wood and you're noticing it hissing, that's a sign that it's wet. You don't want to do that. It's really inefficient.
So Mitchell, we had a question.
Yeah, please.
Someone has had a dead tree on their property for over a year,
yep.
And then the tree fell over. and wondering if that's going to be dry enough to burn.
That may be so. It's best to, if they cut it and split it for curing. What they might also find is if the tree is dead, it might be what's called punky and it might be rotten. And the problem with rotten wood would be that it'll burn much more quickly, much less efficiently. So if you notice your firewood's really light, as it shows on this side, the energy is by the weight. So as long as it's not moisture. So dry wood by weight is going to tell you kind of how quickly it's going to burn. And I've made some mistakes in my youth of collecting wood for free, things like balsam. And balsam, when it's dry, is actually quite light and it burns, well, kind of like throwing rolls of tissue paper in your wood stove. Nice and quick. Woof. It's also, balsam, I've got to say, is a huge pain to split because there's lots of branches and it contains a pretty high pitch content, which means it'll collect more creosote in your chimney. So as an example of a not great species, if it was a balsam that died and fell over, it might not be worth the trouble to use for firewood. It might be better used as a tree for wildlife or to let it rot into soil. So kind of depends on species. I hope that answers the person's question about wood. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not the best authority on wood. In the past, I've done this and I've invited a forester to come and answer these questions. So I've learned from them in that. What I do know is, me personally, I like to collect a variety of species of wood, and I find that works really well for me as a wood heat user. And I don't use wood heat anywhere near as much as I used to when I was young. I've found though that it's good to have some cedar, makes a really good fire starter, excellent kindling. It's great to have fir for your normal burning, and then some harder woods, like I've got when I prune my fruit trees, or if you manage to get some oak or arbutus, that's great for that wood that you want to last a little longer, like maybe an into the evening burn while you go to bed. So I keep sections of different types of wood in my woodshed. I've got to say, one thing I just want to make as a little aside. I grew up with wood heat. In fact, I lived in some homes that had only wood heat, and my parents taught me everything that I learned about wood heat initially. Unfortunately, a lot of the things they taught me were wrong, or so I learned later. Some of the things I learned from them that were incorrect were things like, well, we would collect wood from the beach. You don't ever want to burn wood that's been in salt water. The salt in the wood will do a couple of things. One, salt's a corrosive, so it'll damage your wood stove and your chimney. Also, burning salt wood or salty wood will release dioxins and furans into the atmosphere. So you're poisoning the air around you. So watch out for things like that. I have more stories about my my childhood wood growing and wood burning. Some more things to watch out with wet wood is you can end up with developing either molds in your home or bringing insects into your home. So you want to be mindful about that too. You don't want to create a mold problem, and you don't want to drag a bunch of unnecessary insects into the home either. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been stung by wasps hibernating in my wood, brought in my fair share of spiders, much to the horror of my children. And yeah, moldy wood is very unhealthy. So to kind of recap on the whole wood front, you do want to burn clean seasoned firewood. You don't want to burn an excessive amount of paper either. We almost invariably end up with a Christmas Day fire of people burning wrapping paper, which quite commonly leads to chimney fires. So you want to burn just enough paper to start your fire, not use it as a place to dispose of paper. If you do need to burn paper, I'd recommend doing that outdoors. Better still, shred it and recycle it. Commercial fire starters are okay. However, I do not recommend any of the products that say that they clean chimneys. There is no science, except for manufacturer science, that substantiates those products. You don't want to burn coated, painted, or pressure treated wood. A couple of years ago, I built a greenhouse. I had some scraps left over that had been varathaned. You wouldn't want to burn those in the house. I've saved some of them for other little craft projects, but can't burn them. I mentioned saltwater wood. You can't really burn anything like plywood or particle boards. Glues or woods with glue in it. Again, those glues are fairly toxic, and they'll also accumulate on the inside of your chimney, increasing your risk of chimney fire. Also, same with, people, I've seen people burn plasticky garbage. That's kind of horrifying, both in an environmental perspective and for the fire risk it creates. And again, unseasoned wood is a waste. We'll come back to that. So this is probably one of the key things that I think you're going to find useful is my family also taught me how to burn, and they taught me incorrectly. And about, when I first moved to the island, actually about almost 25 years ago, I attended a workshop by a WET certified, a wood energy technical trained technician, this man named Ziggy Gadowski, and he taught the first Burn It Smart workshop I'd ever seen. And his teaching was mind-blowing for me. And it was this technique that what is shown in this slide. You want to burn hot, bright fires. You want to rake your coals before reloading. You want to burn in cycles and consider small loads and mild weather, and burn like in that cycle mentality. You want to burn for a bit and then let your home cool off a little bit and then burn another cycle. You want to burn each load hot. So what I was taught incorrectly as a child is you want to damp it down as soon as possible to make the wood last as long as possible. Well, that is actually incredibly wrong. What you want to do is get the fire burning hot so that the fire gases are going up the chimney properly first, so they're not backing down at you. And also, you want to create something called secondary combustion. And probably the best way for me to introduce you to the concept of secondary combustion is for me to show you a little video I found from one company, more so. But you can also see it in this image. If you notice on the top of the slide, there's these little circles with fire coming out of them above the glowing hot fire with the coals. Those circles there, those jets of fire, that's an example of secondary combustion. Modern wood stoves collect the fire gases in the firebox and channel them back into the firebox so that they can be reignited and burned. When that happens, your fire is burning much more efficiently. You're getting much more heat out of each piece of wood, and you're actually producing little to no smoke, which is also going to be better for the environment because we'll have way less particulate emissions. And this is one of the things that those EPA 2020 stoves do much better than the stoves before them. I should also use this as a little bit of an opportunity to talk a little bit about fire behavior. A lot of things people don't know about fire. Smoke is a product of incomplete combustion. Smoke is fuel. If you're letting smoke go up your chimney, you're letting the fuel you could have burnt get away. You want to burn that. Anytime you see smoke, it's a sign of incomplete combustion. In addition, as that smoke's going up the chimney, it's going to cool and condense, and it will collect as creosote. And the creosote is what burns when you have a chimney fire. So if you're making smoky fires, you're increasing your risk of having a chimney fire, you're burning less efficiently, and you're also creating a lot more pollution. So let me take a little break from the slideshow and show you a video. So as long as you can see it.
Know that up to 60% of the potential heat energy stored in wood comes from the burning of volatile gases. This process, called secondary combustion, impacts performance and is essential to a smoke-free operation and a cleaner environment. Secondary combustion can easily be achieved if you light and operate your stove correctly. Before striking your match, follow these simple directions to ensure maximum efficiency. First, familiarize yourself with the air control of your stove. Some models may have a dial or spinner placed on the door, while other models may have an air control slide or lever positioned either above the door or below the front ash lip. If you are lighting your stove for the very first time or have recently had it serviced, make sure you ventilate the room by opening windows and doors to allow any curing odors to escape. Also, check your wood supply. You should have a reasonable amount of fuel stored close by so that you don't have to disturb your warm and cozy enjoyment with a cold walk to the woodpile. Initially, aim to store one split log for every hour you expect to burn during the evening. You'll be able to anticipate your on-hand wood needs after several fires. The top-down lighting method, which we will demonstrate, is considered the most environmentally friendly way to ignite a fire. To start, you will need several medium-sized split logs, 5 to 10 sheets of newspaper that have been rolled and knotted, and approximately 2 to 3 pounds of chopped firewood sticks or kindling. Place a couple of base logs front to back on the bottom grate of the firebox, leaving a 3 to 4 inch gap. Next, create a crisscross style kindling stack across the top of the base logs using approximately 2 pounds of dry kindling sticks, keeping the gap open in the middle to position the knotted newspaper sheets. The main objective when first lighting your stove is to allow the heat to quickly escape into the chimney while also establishing chimney draft. Take a moment to stop and check that your primary air control is fully open. Light the newspaper sheets and watch the flames slowly work their way downwards from the top. During this time, probably 5 to 10 minutes, the door remains slightly open. Once the heat produces enough draft through the chimney, you can shut the door. In approximately 45 minutes, the flames will have almost disappeared, leaving a good bed of coals in the base. This is the time that new fuel can be added. To refuel your stove, use a poker or ash scraper to pull the glowing coals to the front of the firebox. Place 3 pieces of wood, 2 pounds or so each, over the embers side to side in a single layer with a gap of approximately ½ an inch between each piece. When the air controls are open fully and the door is closed, the new fuel will ignite within 2 to 3 minutes. Finally, once the fire is reestablished, adjust the air control to the required position in order to regulate the heat output and clean combustion. For a small investment, you can take the guesswork out of the firing process and add a stove thermometer that indicates the correct operating temperature or zone your stove should be in. Some simple rules for controlling your wood stove. Low heat output equals less wood and less air. High heat output equals more wood and more air. Also, remember to always maintain a bed of glowing wood coals. The final test is to go outside and take a look at the top of the chimney when the stove is in use. If you are using your stove correctly, you will not see smoke. If you happen to see smoke for more than 20 minutes, you should recheck your fuel quality to make certain it is properly seasoned and consult your user manual to make sure you are firing the stove at the correct operating temperature. Smoke-free operation is important because to fully realize the many benefits of renewable wood fuel, you need to look after the environment. If you have questions, problems, or concerns when lighting your new Morceau wood stove, please call your local Morceau dealer for assistance.
We actually had a question, Mitchell, if you're
Yeah,
open to that.
please.
For those folks who like to damp down their stove overnight to be able to keep it on a low burn, what advice do you have for overnighters?
So before you get down to that damping down, this is the bit that I really needed to learn as a kid, and that I did learn as an adult, is you actually need to let the fire get hot enough that it's generating that secondary combustion, and that takes about ½ an hour. And then you've got your firebox all loaded up, get it to secondary combustion, then you can damp it down. Now, depending on your wood stove, you might not be able to pull off a all-night burn. That's going to be dictated a bit on the size of your wood box and the quality of wood that you're burning. But if you stack everything in your favor, you've got a nice big firebox for your wood stove, like the size of the wood stove itself, and you've got some high quality firewood, like say arbutus or oak or maple or something like that, you should be able to burn a bit longer. But that's the key bit, is getting the wood hot enough initially. Because there's a couple of different things that happen. One is we want to burn all those fire gases. And the second is actually you generate quite a bit of heat from the coals. So you want a good, healthy bed of coals. And we're going to go into each of these steps in a little bit more detail, because I think you'll find, like I did about 25 years ago, that you can actually get a lot more heat out of your wood stove by changing your technique, or maybe some of you are already doing this. So let's go through each step. So one, we want to get hot, bright fires. In my case, I found with my particular wood stove, I let it go for about 20 minutes to half an hour before I damp it down. When I was younger, before I knew better, I would try and damp it down as soon as possible, and that is not effective. Not only are you burning your wood less efficiently, so you're going to get less heat per piece of wood, you're increasing your risk of chimney fire, you're way less efficient, way less economics, and you're creating a lot more pollution. So it's just a horrible waste. So get it going good and hot. Next step, you're going to burn in a cycle. So rather than, like I was taught, add a piece of wood roughly, once every hour or so. No, burn the whole firebox. So you've built that nice little bed like they showed in the Morso video. And actually, by the way, I've got it down to, I use sometimes 6 pieces of kindling. If my wood's really dry, I could do it with 4 pieces of kindling. And I usually use about 3 or 4 pieces of newspaper. That top-down technique, which again was new to me, is like bomb-proof. It always works, and it uses way less kindling, way less newspaper, and it gets your fire going really great right out of the gate. The problem of the upside down, or the bottom up fire, is it collapses as it's burning and it's less efficient. Anyway, once you've burnt that cycle, just like in this image, you want to rake your coals to the front, because that's where that secondary combustion happens. And then put in a new load of wood, open up your damper again to increase the heat in your firebox, and then let this second cycle go again nice and hot, and then damp it down again. So as I was saying, burn in cycles. You want to see these like glowing coals. The coals, as many people might know, charcoal is a really efficient burning, and it's actually working under a slightly different process, which is quite interesting. So it's generating quite a lot of heat. It's actually more efficient than, well, it's a more complete combustion. So as I was just saying, we're gonna burn in cycles instead of adding a piece of wood every hour. And each cycle, depending on your quality of wood, is going to probably be in the neighborhood of like 2 to 8 hours. I find like in my stove, I can burn a big full wood box in about 3 hours. And then I'll let that cycle completely get down to coals. And then I'll open up the wood box, add in a few, rake my coals, add in a few more pieces, open up the damper to let it get hot again, and then damp it down and start another cycle. Another thing that I've noticed, and maybe you've had this too, especially if you have like a few friends over and suddenly you don't need quite as much wood, your home gets overheated, watch out for that problem that we'll have of like overheating your house. So along with those cycles, think about letting it cool off a little bit in between, so you don't suddenly find yourself too hot. And then also, in these shoulder seasons, like right now or in the spring, try burning smaller loads. You don't always have to do, the same way every time. So you can have a smaller cycle, smaller heat production, and at this time of year, rather than overheating yourself. And you might find that works out really well too. So as I was saying, in between each cycle, let your room cool. So you feel like, oh yeah, no, I think I'd like to warm it up again. You'll find that going through those complete cycles will be more efficient use of your wood. And then as I was saying, each time you start a new cycle, burn it hot again. You don't want to just leave your damper down consistently. You have to open up your fuel control lever to get the heat going again. And it's going to vary a bit from stove to stove. This is where I think that a thermometer could be really useful. In my case, I've got one of those little fans that sits on top, and I kind of use it as a thermometer, because for me, that fan that's sitting on top, that's powered by the heat from the wood stove, once my fan blade starts spinning, that tells me, okay, it's hot enough, I can damp it down again. And this is the image we're looking for. When you look in your wood stove, this is what you should see. You shouldn't see a smoky wood box. You should see the whole thing full of active flame with these jets from those little small flames at the top showing you that you're getting secondary combustion. That's the goal we're seeking. Then, as another way to kind of look to see, hey, am I doing a good job? Go outside and take a look at your chimney. Is there a bunch of smoke coming out of your chimney? Your technique's probably not quite right. You should have little or no smoke if you're burning correctly, because you want all that smoke to be coming out in your secondary combustion. It should be almost no visible smoke. So a little talk about some appliances. Now, one of the people that I've done this presentation with every year in the past is Richard Elwell at the Home Design Center. I find he's an amazing resource for his knowledge about wood stoves, fireplaces, inserts, chimneys, all of that. I'd love to be able to endorse some other people on the island as well. It's not that I have anything bad to say about the others, but I've been super impressed with Richard. He's just his wealth of knowledge is so vast. So if there's questions you have here about appliances, I would recommend talking to him. One thing we're talking about a little bit tonight is it is good if you're looking at buying something. I would strongly recommend you look for that EPA 2020 certification. That'll tell you, as Erin Ann and Darlene and Morgan were mentioning earlier, you're going to have way less particulate emission as a result of that. They're much more efficient. Also, because they're so much more efficient, you're going to have way less risk of a chimney fire because they'll produce less creosote in your chimney. And you should get more efficiency as well. Your wood should last longer. So another thing that goes along with all of this with your appliances is make sure your chimney gets cleaned every year. And I would strongly recommend that you get it done by a professional. Lots of people do it yourselves, and even if you do, I'd still get it done at least once a year by a certified professional to get the documentation that it's been inspected by somebody with wet certification. Some people I've talked to clean their chimneys multiple times a year. That's great. But it's a good idea to get a professional to do it once a year. Make sure they've got all the appropriate safety gear and the insurance, which every chimney sweep I've met on the island so far does. They'll also, like a good chimney sweep, like the person who takes care of my chimney, they pointed out to me that my firebox, my bricks were getting a little damaged and I needed to replace a couple of those. And they pointed out to me when my gasket seals need to be repaired. They'll let you know if your chimney's in good condition. I also had a major repair on a baffle a couple of years ago. So they're going to help point out these kinds of things and keep you safe and let you know how you're doing for your creosote buildup as well. You might be having some serious problems. I know these are, images I've collected from the internet, but I've actually seen things similar on the island. I just wouldn't want to single out neighbors and have them go, oh my God, that's my house. If you have something like this, you're going to have some significant problems. The image with the red barn there with that crazy chimney setup, I've seen things similar to this on Salt Spring, and the way I've seen them is when we've responded to the roof fire that is a result of what that one will do. As you can see, the chimney is actually at the same height as the base of the roof. And of course, sparks from the chimney might get through the spark arrestor. And in the case of 2 island homes I've been to, they've been sucked into the attic by the regular ventilation in the attic and started an attic fire. So you don't want to have a chimney that is put together badly and leads to potential fire problems. Also, the chimney on the right-hand image here, the one that's below the peak of the roof, they probably have significant problems with smoke backing up. Your chimney needs to go at least 2 feet higher, or 60 centimeters, above the top of your roof line. Otherwise, you're going to get something called the stack effect, where the smoke won't be able to leave your building. It's almost like it'll balance out the way if you have a straw in a beverage, the liquid won't go out of the top of your straw and bubble out. Well, in a chimney, it's kind of the same way. It needs to be taller than the roof to be able to escape.
We have another question coming in, Mitchell.
Yeah.
From Nadine. She's wondering about your thoughts on the bio bricks coming out of Crofton. She says that they don't seem to have fillers and they seem to burn really hot.
You know what? I actually am trying them out myself. I bought some last year. They seem to be a great product. They have, as you said, no glues or binding agents. I find they burn quite well. I'm quite happy with them myself. They're small storage and they're actually a byproduct from other milling operations. So I'm giving them a thumbs up personally. And yeah, I was curious about them, so I thought I'd try them out too. And if you're having a hard time finding cured firewood, it's, I think, a great alternative.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the BioBricks are similar to pellets.
I believe they're made much the same way. They're just compressed, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how the pellets are constructed as well. So,
Yeah.
and a proper pellet stove is actually supposed to have less emissions than a regular wood stove.
Yeah, we're hearing lots of reports of those pellets being made from old growth trees here in British Columbia.
Oh,
being,
that's unfortunate.
Trucked over to the UK, and so maybe knowing the source of the wood is one of the questions you might want to ask as well.
Yeah, and I understand the ones here from Vancouver Island. My wife looked into it quite extensively, and it appears that they're well sourced here for that particular product. Now, if you're either considering, I'm not going to tell everybody to go rip out their chimney and start again, but in an ideal world, you'd want your chimney to go as straight as possible. I'll go back to that previous slide. Every time there's a bend or an elbow, that's a place where creosote is more likely to collect. We want it to go as straight as possible. So in an ideal world, it would be great if your wood burning appliance was wherever in your house and the chimney goes up straight above it. Now, I know that's not always possible, but be mindful that every place there's a bend, there's a potential for more creosote to collect. There's also the potential for fire gases to escape out of connecting points. And even if you don't see those fire gases, the ones I'm most concerned about is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless. So you'll want to have a carbon monoxide detector and watch out for, if you can ever see like a hole in your chimney or smoke's escaping or anything like that, you'd want to get it inspected by a professional. But if you're about to install something or do a renovation, this is kind of the image you're looking for. Tall, straight, and inside. If your chimney is outside, it's also more prone to condensation, as you can just well imagine. If it's inside your home, it's going to be heated until it gets out of the home. However, if your chimney is on the outside of the building, the fire gases will be cooling as they're going up the chimney, and they're more likely to collect and create more creosote. So as I mentioned a moment ago, there's a bunch of gaskets on your door and on the appliance. You want to make sure that those are in good condition and tight. I just actually replaced the gaskets in my wood stove. Make sure your hinges are in good shape and fit. And then, well, if your wet certified technician has any other recommendations about your appliance, as I mentioned, there's fire bricks and the baffles inside that may need repair as well. You want to address those because that could be a safety issue and you'll lose efficiency. If you do change your system, just be aware that that actually would kick in a building permit if you do like a major renovation, not if you just swap appliances, but if you either add a wood stove or change the location of a wood stove in your building. So that would be contact the CRD building inspector. The very first time I moved to the island or shortly after I moved to the island and bought my first home, I invited the building inspector, not really knowing what building inspectors were supposed to do, and asked him for tips about my wood stove. And I found out that the wood stove I had wasn't CSA certified, so I needed to replace it. And I needed to put a chimney insert into my chimney because my chimney wasn't in good condition. I was kind of horrified and shocked at the time because it led to a lot of expenditures for a young family. But now I realize in hindsight that it was also increasing the safety of my family and increasing the efficiency. So the building inspector is really your friend ultimately. Also be aware that these are things that will affect your insurance policy, and you'll want to let them know as well. Anybody with wood heat, I think in this day and age, you have to fill out a wood heat questionnaire, or at least I have every time I've renewed my insurance coverage. So again, it's good for them to know. From the fires that I've experienced, involving wood heat, it's actually very helpful for the homeowner if they've been forthcoming with their insurance company about any changes or alterations. And I haven't ever seen, even when we've had chimney fires as the cause of a fire, I've never seen an insurance company withhold yet, at least. So there's a bunch of building codes around the installation of wood stoves, and just recognize they're all there to protect you. You're going to want to have like a heat barrier between the wood stove and the wall. So make sure that those things are intact and that your chimneys have the appropriate clearances so they don't start any fires. These are other things that I find are quite useful. And again, if you have any questions about these kinds of things, a great people to go to are these people with this WET certification, Wood Energy Technical Training. And as I mentioned previously, every chimney sweep I've come into contact with the island is WET certified, as is Richard Elwell at the Home Design Center as an installation technician. I understand there's another young man who's a installation technician on the island. I believe he's wood certified as well. I was trying to look up his name earlier today. I saw he put out a great video on an installation. I thought maybe he'd be attending tonight. I'm hoping to meet him. Anyway, I think there's another good young guy on the go here.
If he happens to be in the audience, feel free to put your name in the chat and any links that you'd like.
Yeah, I noticed on the previous Facebook post, he had made some comments in there, and I thought, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. So as I've said over and over again, you know, go to the pros. They're a valuable ally for all of us. So I just want to reiterate my key points. We want to invest in clean technology. If you've got one of those old brutal wood stoves, if it doesn't have a CSA sticker on it, you definitely want to replace that just for your own safety. And maybe if you've got something sort of in between, sort of mid 1980s to now, maybe it's time to either replace it or look for a different technology. You know, sort of phase out. I found as I've gotten older and lazier, I use a lot less wood heat in my personal experience, and I've enjoyed that trade. I might be investigating a heat pump myself. Anyway, so look to the clean technology. I think I've hammered the go to the pros message. I hope that you've all taken away how valuable it is to have seasoned dry wood and never burn garbage, which includes salt impregnated wood or you know, plywood or construction debris. Those things you do not want to burn in the home, and you really don't want to burn them in your yard either. They're releasing toxic gases. In fact, it's a violation of the open burning smoke control regulation through the province. So you're shouldn't be burning any of that stuff anywhere. And then ultimately work towards, if you are burning wood heat in your home, work towards getting as hot and as much fire as possible with as little smoke. And there's all the reasons to do that, both efficiency and more energy production, but also much more safety and better for the environment. So a couple more resources that I find that are quite useful. One is there's a program in the United States called Burn Wise, and I've seen that they have some great resources. And then there's this old document from I think it's the last production was the 1990s, a guide to residential wood heating. And you can still find it online. And I've actually put a link to it I've actually posted a PDF copy on our website. It's an excellent resource on residential wood heating from the Canadian government back in the 1990s. If you're, really want to geek out on this topic, it's a great source of information. It's a little booklet that you could print out or read it online, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. I find it a very valuable resource. So those would be things to look at in the future. And I want to thank you for your time coming out tonight to learn more about wood heat and how to be thoughtful to your neighbors and hopefully be a little safer. And if you have any more questions, I look forward to those as well.
I'm not seeing any further questions in the chat, Mitchell, but that was a great presentation. You're such a clear communicator. I really appreciate that. I learned tons. That thing about what did you call it? The chimney, the top-down kindling, the stack effect. Wow. I've been using a wood stove for 25, 30 years, and had not heard that before. And then the burning in cycles piece.
The
Wow.
burning in cycles for me was a game changer. I could not believe how much more heat I got out of my firewood and how much longer I was able to make a firewood pile last by burning each piece really efficiently. And it's so counterintuitive. Like I remember learning as a kid, oh, you want to, damp it down, make it last a long time. But it's actually the exact opposite. You're burning incredibly inefficiently that way. So
amazing.
Get it going good and hot, then you can damp it down.
Amazing. No, I'm hoping, I believe all of us are probably moving out of tonight feeling as though we're going to be definitely making some changes to our wood burning approaches, and hopefully taking advantage of some of the rebates that we have to either upgrade to a heat pump. We've done that here at our place, really took advantage of those rebates provincially to be able to afford that. And now we just use our wood stove as backup. And I just feel better about that. It was a great investment for us for the future. So speaking on that front, because we had some brownouts, speaking of power outages and backups, we just want to make sure that you've all seen, Erin Ann is putting in the chat right now, the waiting list for our rebates to be able to access the wood stove rebates, heat pump rebates. So please do take a look at those. If you have any questions, Morgan, anything you'd like to say as we're kind of closing out here?
If you have any questions about how to make your home more climate resilient, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is climatecoach@transitionsaltspring.com, and we'll get Erin Ann to share that in the chat. My role is really to talk to you and to help you reach that next step to move forward, whether that's getting a new wood stove, whether that's getting a heat pump, or anything else really within what you can do as a person, as an individual. So I'm here to help. So please reach out.
Terrific. We actually had one last question in the chat from Nancy. Is the requirement coming from house insurers that one's already wet certified stove and installation has to be recertified every 5 years? Is that a government requirement, or just something the insurers are requiring? Does anyone know?
I believe that's coming from the insurance world.
Mm-hmm.
As you're probably well aware, insurance companies are taking a beating with all the climate problems that are happening in the world, all the wildfires in Western California, in Australia. This is a global phenomenon that is hammering that industry, and we're going to, I hate to say it, we're going to probably see continuing increases both in the cost of insurance claims. And one thing that I think people might start to see too that is new is insurance companies are now choosing to not insure things. Yeah. We had a really difficult time, for example, getting insurance for the fireworks show. We got turned down by almost 6 companies. I've never seen that happen before. So I think people are going to find that insurance companies are going to be pushing back a bit more about a few things, including wood heat. Right. Another one that I expect to see in the future is more things about fire smart, but that's a topic of another conversation.
Topic for another day. Well, just another reason to be looking at heat pumps, maybe saving our shekels for a few years to be able to invest in that kind of infrastructure for our homes as things begin to change. Certainly here at Transition Salt Spring, we also are looking towards fire just in general as one of the real threats to our community here on Salt Spring Island, as we're just having rains now the past few days, and it's almost November. So I don't think any of us has seen that in our lifetime. So lots of work that we're doing here at Transition Salt Spring to help you reduce your impact on the environment. Tonight's webinar was also about our own personal health and how we can try to be able to reduce those impacts from wood smoke on our health and the health of our neighbors. Lots of work also going on here at Transition Salt Spring on other kinds of climate mitigation and adaptation issues. Really would encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. That really is the best way to be able to stay in touch with the climate action work that we're undertaking here at Transition Salt Spring. And if you feel so inclined to give a donation to us to help us in our work as we're going forward, that's always really appreciated. Do get in touch with us at any time. You can find our website very easily, transitionsaltspring.com. Want to thank Mitchell Sherrin from Salt Spring Island Fire and Rescue, always one of our go-to sources of support and information and help as we try to figure this out together going forward, and also to our sponsors, Whirlwind Home Heating, Mowat's Home Hardware, Fresco Refrigeration, and the Home Design Center that Mitchell was mentioning as a great source of information about wood stoves. So thanks, everybody. Really do appreciate you coming here, and stack the wood as you start it and burn in cycles. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.